Our next panel discussion will be on NFT, Metaverse, blockchain. Is the hype real? To discuss this, I would like to welcome on stage Stefka Bratoevska, Director General Counsel, Department ME&T, Credit Suisse. Persis Hodiwalla, Managing Partner at JP Legal Corp. Tammi McMahon, Partner Director and Assistant General Counsel at Procter & Gamble. Paolo Morresi, Contract Manager, Lead Middle East at Accenture.
So I am Stefka, currently, yes, Director and Senior Legal Counsel at Credit Suisse, AG DFC. However, I should make the small note here on the side and open the bracket to say I speak on my own account. I do not represent my employer, and we're here to speak about exciting topics such as the blockchain, NFTs, and the Metaverse, and we'll focus more on that. And my wonderful co-panelists here are Persis, Paolo, and Tammi. And without further ado, because I know that you're probably all hungry and it's a late lunch, but we'll start with the Metaverse. Everyone talks about it, and it's just such an interesting thing. But is it just those games where the children kind of get lost and can play with friends around the world, or even people that they haven't met? Or is there more to it? I mean, Paolo, you use the Metaverse, and can you tell us more about what is it, and
Sure.
how do you actually use it at Accenture?
Absolutely. Pleasure to be here with you today. So Metaverse. Metaverse is an evolution of the current internet as we know it, and allows to move beyond the browsing that we are usually do on daily basis, and bring us to an interaction and a participation in habits of a virtual and digital environment that is a totally different experience of what we know as of today of the internet. So it's totally different. Indeed, we talk about Metaverse evolution. It's an evolution, and we talk some points now, and also revolution, because it's gonna, believe it or not, in the next 10 years, in the next decade, we are gonna assist to a revolution of the internet and the business as we know it. It's very, interesting, because the evolution is coming from, has been generated by the different components, such as extended reality, virtual reality, augmented reality, but also we need to consider also the blockchain, the NFT. We need to consider the cloud and artificial intelligence. All together are used as part of experience of the Metaverse. Indeed, Metaverse, it's the key component of Metaverse is the experience. The experience that we, as users or as workers, are having using the Metaverse itself. I don't know how many of you have already access to Metaverse. I did. Not so often, unfortunately, but this is coming. And the experience of using a VR headset or even using your own laptop is so powerful, because you feel yourself immersed. Of course, you have an avatar over there, right? That you can personalize based on your wishes. But At the same time, what you will see and what you will live in there is a kind of interaction that is almost close to the reality. And all of us, we have been passed through this pandemic, and this has been and is going to be a powerful tool that will connect and will reinvent the world as we know it, the commercial and the business world as we know it. So, to give you so Metaverse, what does? Empowers the users. So who is using Metaverse is empowered because he has the freedom, kind of freedom, to build up his own business, his own building, his own space. There are actually, believe it or not, today's people are buying lands and space in Metaverse. People are building up software, are building up services to be sold in the Metaverse, meeting people in the digital world and selling and commercializing products. Even some brand products are thinking to commercialize and do some branding in the Metaverse. It's so powerful that we still, because they give us a sense of place and belonging that is other internet doesn't do. So to give you some numbers, we have so in 2021, Metaverse was evaluated, was having a value of $180 billion, 2021. In 2024, it's expected $800 billion. And there is an expectation for 2030 to be, to reach 13 trillion of dollars in the world economy. So definitely there is a lot of attention around this. But to go further, what is it about? So it is an expanding and evolving continuum. So it's definitely most of the companies are experimenting and we are working with them this virtual environment. So because it goes from consumers to workers and across enterprises. It goes from reality to virtual and back in integrated fashion. It goes from 2 dimension to 3 dimension seamlessly, and it moves from cloud, artificial intelligence, extended reality, as we say, blockchain, edge, and more. And so starting today is an evolving, so rapidly evolving architecture. So, but we need to consider also some responsible dimensions of the metaverse. So if we look at we need to see at this from 2 different dimensions. One is the trust dimension and one is the human dimension of metaverse. So in terms of trust dimension, we need to look at definitely, and we are analyzing this from legal perspective in terms of privacy, because you could ask yourself, okay, if I log in with my avatar in Metaverse, how my data are going to be used? Who is going to access to those data, right? How are they going to be used for commercial purposes? Are they going to be distributed? How can I be protected? And especially considering GDPRs and so on. I mean, this is definitely one topic that is important. We need to consider also, always from the trust dimension, the resilience. So how scalable is the structure. Do we have a redundancy so that the system and the virtual reality is available at any point in time, and scalability in terms of platform. So it's not limited to a small number of people and users and consumers. Security, another topic. We need to consider the security across the extended reality. So when we do, for example, a transaction in Metaverse, how can we be sure that this transaction, payment transactions, is going to be secured and is not going to be hacked? Last but not least is the intellectual property. That's definitely, we open a big door on the intellectual property, because you can imagine that each of us can access in Metaverse and start a business tomorrow. Starting a business, owning, for example, NFT, so the non-fungible token, on a digital piece of Metaverse that you build up, and you wanna own the intellectual property of that piece. So there is an entire world behind the Metaverse. This is only for the trust dimension. If you go on the human dimension, of course, we can talk about diversity, accessibility of Metaverse. We can talk about safety. How can I access and be safe in an environment? Let's remember that this environment is supposed to be accessed by many others, as we are interacting right now. And how can I feel safe in an environment that is known, is a totally a mirroring environment, might be a completely mirroring environment to the actual world. How can be sure that we are in a safe environment? We can interact. We can be. We can do business, or we can interact and talk in a safe environment and not feeling treated. Sustainable. That's probably part of. We can talk about this sustainability, because it is true. Metaverse is composed by two main chunks. One is the Metaverse itself in terms of environment, digital environment, and then the Web3 that is taking care of the data and how data is exchanged in Metaverse. Both of them, but especially Web3, is consuming a lot of power, a lot of energy, but at the same time, that's the challenge that I have the current developers at the moment, that they need to develop something that is consuming less than is going to be required to act and to sustain a Metaverse. Because otherwise, it's not sustainable. If you are going to a carbon emission in order to allow Metaverse to exist, this is definitely not sustainable business. Yeah. So it needs to be sustainable, and that's probably a challenge that we are going to touch at the end.
Conscious of the time. No, it's super interesting, and it's like I know there is so much to talk about. I just wanted to touch upon the other topics, and as you mentioned, IP and the NFTs. We have Persis here, who is an IP lawyer, specializes in IP law and also in the film industry. And Persis, can you tell us more about those NFTs, the non-fungible tokens that are so talked about? And I still struggle, frankly, to get my head around it. I can see how for art pieces, and people destroy pieces of art once an NFT is made, and I still, again, struggle with the thought. But what are the uses? What are the other uses of NFTs, and is there a future for them really, or is it just a kind of fashion at the moment?
I think he's covered a lot on the Metaverse, and thank you for that. For me, I come from a different background completely. So where I belong is we make films day in day out. We are content curators, and when NFT was even first when we spoke about NFT in India, we still are struggling at times with the Copyright Act in our own country. But when it came to NFT, quickly we could circle around and we understood that I don't think that it's just a hype. It is going to be a reality in the future, because with the augmented reality, we can actually go in and play games and be the characters, and on the metaverse we create NFT. So when I deal with lead Bollywood actors, of late it is the trend that they want to retain the NFT. They want to give away the character, but they want to retain the NFT. But when our producers or when the studios make a movie, after investing so much of money in it, we obviously want some recoupment on the same. And this NFT is a new window which has come to us, saying that once we monetize the character which we have created in the film in Metaverse, we will be able to, as rightly pointed out, people are exchanging properties. There is a lot of sale, there is a lot of commercial exploitation, there's merchandising, there's gaming. So for us also there is an animation. So NFT is open another window wherein it's a ray of hope, where the exploitation or the monetary aspect will start pumping in. When I do agreements for the actors, for the writers, of late even for the directors, they are asking that they want to retain their NFT, which as a lawyer we obviously have to say no, because the IP ownership of that particular NFT belongs to the studio or belongs to the person who is actually invested in the whole content. It can be web series, it can be movies. And also we as a producer or say as a studio tomorrow should have a bandwidth to exploit that particular character as an NFT in our another franchise movies, because when we do web series, there are from season 1 to season 5, the same character can tag along the entire season. Or if there is a movie, then one character is shown in another movie. We should be able to exploit that in the way we want. Tomorrow we don't want any talent to hold on or have any reservation that you should come back to us for an NOC, or the IP of that particular NFT, it belongs to me. So we really try to have heavy negotiations with the talent managers and the lawyers, and make sure that the NFT ownership comes to us, because it is going to be the future for us. It's an evolving technology, of course, and even as lawyers sometimes we face challenges that how to operate the metaverse, and then there is an NFT. In between that, during the process of creating that NFT, we also have to go through AI, because wherever we want to exploit it, even internationally, we have so many international film festivals, and if we want to exploit any one character and open the film, we should have the rights. So for us, IP is very secured. We own it. I draft clauses accordingly, and then when it moves to metaverse, then sometimes I come up with questions that the metaverse is owned by somebody else, and how can you exploit that? So then we go back saying that the platforms are also owned by somebody else, but then we enter into a license agreement with them. Same way, in maybe near future, we'll be entering into say license agreements where we'll be licensing our NFT in metaverse to the exploiters, and we might open films in metaverse. People can go and watch films. That particular character can become a part of a movie, or it can become a part of another game. And today's generation are very interested in gaming as well. So then they can buy, I don't know, can you shop on metaverse? Yeah, you can shop on metaverse. So then the way the person looks, the way we have Marvel characters in place. So it will open a lot of avenues, but for us, we'll have to commercially and legally structure the entire deal and learn the nuances of that technology, and definitely open up a new window for exploitation. So I'm very happy with that.
So how has the IP law actually evolved with respect to the NFTs? I mean,
India doesn't have, as of now, India doesn't have a base, or we are still circling around the Copyright Act, and some portion is governed by the INB, but for us, other challenge what we face is because of the AI, who's owning that piece of work. But as I said, eventually we take it we draft clauses in such a way that eventually the person who's pumping in the money in that building that particular character will own the IP of the entire character. We don't dissect it, because even in post-production, there are like 200, 300 people working on one film. Everybody has their own ideas, we come across creatively, but nobody owns any IP. It's completely work made for hire. Yes.
Interesting. So yeah, and mentioning films and AI, actually, I was recently reading something very interesting that Netflix, as an example, but uses AI to determine what series or movie is more watched in one region. And actually the other day I was watching the series 2 of something, and they had introduced some Middle Eastern characters, and my husband and I were talking about this because everything's happening in the US in that series, and he was like, I bet you that this was some AI who told them that this is really watched in the Middle East, and now to make it more interesting to all of his audience, they've introduced those characters. So kind of, the Middle East is mentioned, Doha, Dubai, the names, so it's kind of, it makes it more relatable.
The platforms use AI technology to even gather data, how many people have watched, what is the in thing as of now, and then that's how you can, so anything you type in, say Amazon Prime or Netflix, then once you log in again into that platform, you will see that the last watched was a comedy or a horror or a thriller, so then it will keep pushing that content to you. So that is AI, and then I think that leads to blockchain. So
or if we could cover the ethics behind AI.
You mean the $1 million question that I think is we could debate for hours, especially from a philosophical point of view, right? I think that's one of the main things that a lot of people outside of the legal industry and outside of the tech industry are very interested in debating, and very interested in, in assessing that element of humanness, and how really can machines take that human element. But I think if we put that aside, for me, I think the ethics part, and we had some great speakers before who mentioned some of these key topics, really comes down to the transparency and the responsibility of it. So I think for me, if I look from purely a personal lens of what I would consider the key tenets that we really need to start looking into with actually all of these kind of technologies, whether it's NFTs, Metaverse, the generative AI that's popping up every day, is really the elements that focus on human-centricness and focus on protecting that. And I'm not meaning, like I said, from a philosophical point of view, but I think really what the interesting parts are that we're going to grapple with more and more from a legal point of view is the elements of bias, the elements of inaccuracies in the information. I think the word that's been coined on LinkedIn now is the hallucinations of AI, and how can we prevent these, right? But I think those things, along with making sure that AI and all of these kind of technologies are not used for nefarious purposes, is going to become the key element that we've really got to focus on if we think of the ethics of it. I think, like you said, just picking up on some interesting news stories. I don't know if you guys have seen what's trending on social media and on LinkedIn at the moment about the 60 Minutes presenter. Anyone know what I'm talking about? So 60 Minutes, of course, the news show, that's very popular in the US. And actually, it was a CEO of a cybersecurity/tech company that actually was able to use AI to not only, obviously a lot easier in this case because she's a news presenter, there's a lot of content out there for them to pick on, so to speak, versus the average person who doesn't generally find themselves on TV, but who are actually able to pick up little pieces and mimic not only her voice, but also use, spoofing technology so that they actually use that to contact one of her staffers right there in the room while they were actually preparing for an interview and ask her to, just in this case, just hand over actually her passport number. And the craziness is when they played this back to both the 60 Minutes news presenter and the staffer that she very closely works with, the staffer was shocked and horrified that that actually was not the person she speaks to and listens to every day, right? So I think those for sure in the years to come, and it's going to be in the years, because I don't think when it comes to new technologies, it's not all a hype. I think it's a hype now. It is real, but I mean the effects and the effect it's going to have on us, both from a legal point of view and in the industry at large, are definitely lasting ones we'll have to grapple with. But Persis, sorry, just one last thing. I think my favorite thing that you said is, really explaining about how you've dealt with NFTs in practice. I mean, not an IP lawyer by trade, but I think one of the things that to me on NFTs was the most shocking. I don't know if you saw the Gucci case where the Gucci's house, as part of their exploration into the metaverse, actually sold a collectible of a Gucci handbag. Not even a full NFT. It wasn't transferable. It was just purely a collectible to use in their metaverse execution. Sold for more than the actual physical Gucci bag. So if your work is, if you weren't sure about the impact it was making, I think that's a great example of it.
Yeah, no, it's fascinating. I was actually recently invited to an event, and a lady who created a very sustainable eco jacket, which cost 3,000 euros, but that's not the point, that it's made of sustainable materials and all. She advertised it as, and you become a member of a special club, which will be on the blockchain, and you own, because the jacket will be specifically made for you, so it will take several months. It's made in Europe, the fabric is specifically made, so, but before you receive the jacket, you receive the NFT related to it, and it's unique to you, and you also have a filter that you can have of the jacket for your Zoom meetings. And I was thinking, God, this is really something else. But yes, talking about the metaverse and this other reality that we can live in, perhaps it's something that, it would be useful. But and in that, I mean, on the evolution of the whole thing, the blockchain, because blockchain started off in 2009, 10 with the launch of the Bitcoin, essentially by Satoshi Nakamoto, and then it built on from there. But what are your thoughts on generally the evolution of the blockchain, the NFTs that live on the blockchain, and obviously the metaverse is closely related as well? Anyone?
You want to go first? Well, I will say maybe I'm not the best person to speak on the blockchain. I'm not a fan of it. That's me personally, so please don't shoot me when I leave the room, or especially if you're in the crypto side of the world. But I would just, maybe the only comment to have is really to say that I think that it has a lot of great potential, but again, the questions of ethics that we've spoken about, and also, not using it for nefarious purposes is going to be something that raises its head, including in the blockchain space. I think we've made great strides towards that. And I think for me personally, maybe it's just because I'm a bit of a naysayer when it comes to the blockchain of all the technologies that there are. I think the one challenge is always adaptability by the average everyday consumer. I know that Dubai is making great strides in that, and it often lets you pay for hotels now with crypto, whatever the case may be. But I think for me that's always been I suppose the one thing at the back of my mind that always is the struggle. I don't know if you guys agree.
Yeah, we are still struggling with the crypto and Bitcoin because the laws are not strengthened, or we cannot trade in crypto in India. But when it comes to NFT, I'm sure in the future down the line we'll be able to do something about it and trade maybe NFT for Bitcoin. But whenever that happens, that is for us to see, because the applicability, and then again we'll circle back in having issues with the Copyright Act, because everything becomes overlapping for us at least.
The blockchain has much wider uses than
just the blockchain is, of course,
and all that. It's just that and Paolo touched on that, it's a bit more energy consuming, although there are things that obviously the developers are looking into, because everyone's aware of the environmental issues. But the blockchain can be used for so much more, and actually even the wonderful city that we live in, Dubai, is, I mean, the government works on those initiatives, building Dubai as a smart city, and using blockchain and again the metaverse to power up the city, and so we'll see how it evolves. But Paolo, you mentioned that in Accenture you do use the metaverse. How do you actually use the metaverse in practice? Like what's...
So at the moment we are currently using Metaverse in three different dimensions. One, when onboarding people. Last year we onboarded more than, let's say 150,000 people has been trained as part of the onboarding process with Metaverse.
Okay.
So the young generation is for this kind of technology. So we onboarded people using Metaverse. And in addition to that, there is one addition important factor, that Metaverse bring us together regardless of where we are, in the same environment, in the same building. And what is important as well is that companies are trying to mirror in their office, in the virtual office, there are an exact replica of their own office, so that the people can meet in there, discuss over a meeting, and so that's the big chunk. The other dimension is, okay, 150,000 people onboarded through Metaverse. We are having a learning center through Metaverse, and we are actually doing meetings, executive meetings with Metaverse, and we are trying to push also our clients to use Metaverse, and having some negotiation meetings, and this, of course, I mean, is going towards the future, and the zero carbon emission, almost zero in that sense, because eliminate the travel time, the fuel emission, and that's the direction we are going. At the same time, as I said, we are still working with our customers they are experimenting how this is still new. I mean, we are talking about Metaverse over the last 2 years, 3 years. There is still an entire world that needs to be discovered, that needs to be ruled, needs to be addressed also especially from a legal perspective when it comes to intellectual property, when it comes to our rights, and what we can do, what we can't do, how to, because at the same time Metaverse is not owned by a CEO, it's owned by people that are entering in there, purchasing pieces of digital lands or digital space, and so it needs to be ruling somehow. And so far this is going good. I mean, we believe that this is going to be self-ruled in somehow.
But to add to that, when we think through, so we do a lot of cross-border transactions.
Yeah.
Once Metaverse will be fully, it should be absorbed by what I feel is it should be absorbed by all the countries of the world, and then the laws eventually should be able to tackle it. Like you have the Berne Convention, but then it has to be upgraded to absorb this kind of technology, where we keep just talking about it. There are software engineers who are making things, giving accessibility to even our contracts. Of late we do DocuSign. They are done in Metaverse now.
Yep.
Because of the blockchain, we have the security of the agreements as well. Earlier we were, even scared that what if the document comes, especially in our industry, we run so much high on confidentiality. And in that, I feel that blockchain, if we start uploading now our agreements on blockchain, I think that will be a benefit to us in some way. And then of course, then doing the meetings and everything in Metaverse, watching movies also there. But I think from the legal standpoint, blockchain will be of great help. At least our agreements will be secured.
Yeah.
Nobody will access to our paperwork. Yeah.
I agree, it needs blockchain, and generally all these developments probably need to be regulated on a more of a transnational level somehow, because national laws will not. I mean, someone was giving the example recently, if you put the servers on a ship and the ship is kind of in international waters, what jurisdiction will apply?
Exactly.
And there are various ways in which people can be creative, so you don't want people to be able to evade kind of the law. Well, there is no law covering that.
And sometimes the IP is getting created in one country, the payment is done from another country, and the usage is in the third country. How will the three countries come together on the same platform to give usage or accessibility of that particular product and then give access to the world population in metaverse. I think these are the challenges. Eventually, the countries will have to come together and decide.
Not even. I mean, if we think about in case of dispute, this may happen.
Dispute resolution in metaverse.
Or in case of litigation, what is going to be the country that is going to be disputed?
Absolutely.
Which applicable law is going to be is going to apply?
Well, maybe, sorry to interrupt you, Paolo, then maybe that's a point to ask a question. Maybe we can take a vote of everyone here and of the panel. It sounds like we're heading, at least from your guys' side of the table, to more regulation. So maybe just to see where everyone falls on the barometer of more regulation versus less regulation, or self-regulation, which I think is one of the proposals on the table as well. Anyone have any
question?
Anyone, do you have any questions? So do you have any views on whether there should be more regulation? Or, I mean, the whole idea of blockchain when it was launched was that it's kind of decentralized, not regulated, not anyone has kind of a single power over it. So, but obviously, the more and more it's evolved, maybe we do need. I am definitely a proponent
of more regulation.
More regulation and the law. Yes, I mean.
Just to play devil's advocate, should we tell you a quote from a very large tech company ex-employee? So take it with a grain of salt, since ex-employee. I believe one of the quotes I read of hers, which I tend to agree with, but it doesn't mean I am against regulation. She said, "Self-regulation, if left to the individual companies themselves, equals no regulation whatsoever." So I think that's on playing devil's advocate is on the other side of the scale. But to your point, yes, I think maybe we need to end up somewhere in the middle where there's freedom within a framework, guiding principles on all the elements of tech, but not necessarily more regulation with new laws.
Or something that, I mean, the traditional law obviously doesn't necessarily work, but maybe something new needs to be thought of. But self-regulation doesn't always, I mean, those recent scandals with the chap in the Bahamas who kind of created that Ponzi scheme and, lived, well, for a very short period of time, but lived the life essentially, and the high life. Obviously, there was no self-regulation. I mean, they didn't even have proper governance, and that's why it happened. So maybe we're not evolved as much yet to get to the self-regulation point. But does anyone want to add anything, or if you had any observations? Or I can ask another question. Just final words.
Yeah. Or any hands saying yes, self-regulation. That's all you have to say if you're a bit shy.
I think everyone's hungry. We'll let you go have lunch shortly. And the previous panel covered that, but I'm interested to hear your views on the AI and what AI replaces. I mean, ChatGPT, I don't use it. My husband loves it, and so I've seen the uses of ChatGPT from him. And I see the benefits. I mean, again, as a lawyer, and when I trained years ago, I remember spending hours in the library of my old law firm, like doing research, obviously billable to clients, so not the most cost-effective thing for clients. And now ChatGPT, you just put in the question, hopefully in the right way, and it kind of spits out so much that it would take you literally hours to find out. So obviously the thing is good, maybe some more, and the more data you put into it, the better it becomes. And law firms, yes, such as Allen Overy and them that we mentioned earlier, are working on that, and that's my former law firm actually. But do you think that it can fully replace us? I mean, Tammi?
I think, to be honest, I don't think AI singularly on its own will ever replace us, and I think that goes for us in the legal side of the sphere, but also those people who have that, fear-mongering, especially, I'm going to lose my job, especially if it's maybe a more blue-collar versus, maybe a very highly technical job. To me, I think what will replace us, if we are those fear-mongers and if we are those, maybe what the word is, hyper-cautious, especially hyper-cautious lawyers who don't enable our clients, our businesses, etc. I think we will be replaced by people who are not so cautious and who do choose to use those tools, because that's exactly what they are. Like you said, they're tools that can make our life more effective, simpler, better, where we can focus on, the value adds of our work, the real deep thinking versus the everyday tasks. So I definitely agree with the panel before us. I don't know if there's any dissenting views.
Paolo was shaking his head as well.
I don't know if that was shaking your head or agreeing.
I agree, and to be honest, I mean, the technology may replace the human being in some portion, but not full of it. Because at the end of the day, it's up to us to judge and what we wanna to give the context on what we wanna say, to tune the text and give the proper message to a context, to a situation, to a contract. So we can't delegate, at least so far. For sure, in the next future, there would be a better version of ChatGPT, probably, with the artificial intelligence properly trained and properly feeded. Data lake, access to the data lake, so will be much more data accessible in that sense. But still I mean, we probably need to shift our interest and our mindset into something that is more value added rather than and not diminishing our work, because I mean, for sure, it's definitely what we are doing is important, but we can probably focus more on giving values to an extract, to a text, rather than simply spending most of the times in drafting. And so I would prefer to spend time in revising and just fine tuning rather than drafting.
Drafting from scratch.
Oh, the green, yes. Persis, any thoughts? We seem to be aligned so far, but if you have any different...
Yeah, from ChatGPT, I think I'm still yet to use it. But when it comes to our industry, people see entertainment industry functions on word of mouth, and it's on trust, whether there is paper or no paper, or technology or no technology. But yeah, as Paolo said, that but drafting, like every day, even there are times when I correct my own agreements. But for us, even if the ChatGPT is spelling out the clauses, it won't cover the intent, because for us to make two people meet and come to consensus on the same clause, it takes hours and months and years. So in our industry, that technology I'm sure it can help only in throwing out the definitions, which are pretty standard, and the boilerplate clauses. But the main intent of the principal understanding clause, which runs into 6-7 pages, that will be always drafted by the humans who are like we have to read with the latest judgments and what's happening in our industry. So I don't think the technology will ever be able to take up that.
Thank you. So we all agree with the gentleman from the public who's not here now, but he spoke before and he said that absolutely lawyers will still be there in 10 years time at least. It won't be replaced.
Humans are irreplaceable. Technology creates humans.
Persis, you might be horrified to hear the one on the earlier panel. I've actually not personally heard about this AI yet, but there is one where ChatGPT or bots, whatever it may be, that certain technology negotiates an NDA on behalf of two parties, or it negotiates with itself based on the inputs, of course, that you give it. So maybe in the future we might get to a point where the negotiation is all handled.
Maybe NDAs, and I mean ChatGPT is very clever. I've interacted a little bit with the one that my husband has a subscription to, and you have to be polite to it as well. It's not like it's like a human. If you don't say please, or like if you're just, it kind of talks back. So it's not that, no, thank you so much. And do you have, I'm again conscious, and I know everyone's hungry and it's very late lunch, but any questions from the audience? The remaining ones, no, I guess no. Well, then, thank you very much. Thank you for listening to us and staying here, and thank you for my wonderful co-panelists as well.
And to you as well,
Thank
Stefka, for keeping us alive. Thank you.
Thank you.